Hello and welcome back, ladies and gents. We are so super close to Christmas, and I have got a beautiful little present for you today. Some of you would have met Peter very recently off the back of my Soul Path Attunement video, but I actually proposed to Peter that we got together and did a video from his perspective, like what he needs to do, because obviously I've experienced it and some of you have now, but I just felt it would be really beautiful to bring the consciousness to this beautiful gift that Peter is bringing to the world. So ladies and gents, please welcome the amazing Peter Lancett. And I would just like to, before I hand over to him to obviously introduce himself a little bit better than I'm going to, I would just like to say I was introduced to Peter via Michelle Wilkie, who has become a friend. She started as a follower, she's become a friend of mine, and she mentioned Peter a couple of times, and the second time I was like, right, I'm taking the hint, I need to speak with this man, because I know Michelle from past lives and things like that. So Peter does many things that we're not doing him justice by just talking about the Soul Path Attunement, but because I have been through this process with Peter and I feel my followers, you guys, would love it so much, I actually asked Peter if he would mind awfully giving us a bit of his time today to share with you. Now, before I hand over to Peter, all of his details will be in the description box. So if you do want to book a session, or if you are interested in some of the other things that he does, check out his website, speak to him directly, and you guys can get it organized. You do not need to come through me. Just so you know, ladies and gents, you don't need to do that. So Peter, good morning.
Good morning, and that was a heck of an introduction. I have to say, that's a lot to live up to, and I'm pretty sure I'll do
cells are
my best.
vibrating hard today, Peter, because of the work I did for Solstice yesterday. I'm kind of like,
yes, of course, and we've just been through that wonderful time of the year as well. So we're now seeing the light coming back bit by bit. I always find it kind of strange at this time of year, and I know I'm already going off track here, aren't I?
We like it.
Although technically the light is supposed to be getting back and the days are supposed to be getting longer, I don't feel that for a week or two. Usually, it's almost like we're preempting it by giving a day to something that's actually an event that doesn't actually understand time.
And I
It
totally
just is
agree.
what it is.
I totally agree with you. And I actually feel that it tends to be after New Year that we start to really blossom again, don't we?
I feel that too. And we live by fake calendars anyway. The calendars have been changed, so many times because a lot of the history, certainly the planetary history that we've been taught, isn't true.
Yeah.
Things that have happened, catastrophic events have happened much more recently than people understand, and there's lots of proof about that. I'm not putting a tinfoil hat on it. I mean,
don't worry, I love the tinfoil hat, Peter.
No, exactly. But you know what I mean. It's like if you want to go out there and find that, the starting point would be Velikovsky, but really, we won't go into that too much here. I just want to say thank you for introducing me, and really thank you for having me do this recording with you. That's such an honor. I mean, for everybody listening, I'm Peter Lancett, as Lucy said. I've been around the block a lot. I mean, I've had a spiritual path that's since my teenage years. I mean, we're going back a long, long way now, and I mean, the really big event that started things moving for me was finding, and well, I didn't find it, it found me, a ceremonial magic order, which, by the way, yes, I was part of it for 3 years. No, I wouldn't recommend it for a lot of reasons that I'm sure everybody watching this recording would understand. But from there, when that broke apart, I went off on my own. I mean, people were saying, "Oh, we're going to form a new order." Everybody was trying to get everybody else into it. No, thank you. I'll leave that alone. The experiences were incredible. The learnings that I got from it stick with me to this day, and they were great. The experiences, terrifying. So no, I'm not going that way. So I moved on to the things that interested me the most, which was alchemy. Spiritual alchemy and physical alchemy. I mean, the whole thing, it does work, and you can learn how to do it. And then I moved on to earth magic, like connecting with the great Mother Earth. Moving from there, I found something that I'd actually started looking for many years previously, which was real witchcraft. I'm going to use that word, witchcraft, but don't confuse this with Wicca, which it absolutely isn't. We're talking about people who connect with the earth, with the stars, with the sky, with all aspects of spirituality to make changes. And they're working alchemy, and they already did without the technicality of it. Then I moved. I found myself drifting towards people that were introducing me to shamanism. I'm very uncomfortable using the word. I'll be honest with you. I have a business called Suburban Shamanism, and it's the suburban bit's there for a reason. Lots of people, and certainly you'll find them all over the internet, are saying that they're shamans and that they'll do this and they'll do that and they'll do. Well, unless you've been through the really difficult struggle to become one of those great healers and then those great channelers and those great voyagers that are in various cultures around the world, I think it's a bit difficult to call yourself that. I mean, I run drumming sessions. I mean, mine are very therapeutic. I tell stories in the proper way, and we drum for therapeutic reasons. But Soul Path came to me because of a lot of this.
Yeah.
And I met somebody that introduced me to journeying to the Akasha to find out more about me. I was adopted as a baby, so I didn't know my background. I didn't know any of my history in that sense of the word, my family history that most people understand. I didn't, and it's like, okay, well, you can find out more about yourself by visiting, and it was a process.
Yeah.
And I use shamanic journeying to do it. So I found my own soul blueprint first of all, which you would. And then people, when I was telling people about it, they said, "Can you do that for me?" And I thought, well, I'm pretty sure I can. And so I went through processes to find out how I could. And it does involve journeying. I mean, I need information from a person so that I can isolate their record, their information in the Akasha. The Akashic records people possibly know about, and they've probably heard it described. And often we hear people saying, "Oh, it's like a big library, and it's and all the records are there. Imagine it like that. It's a giant library." Well, I wouldn't imagine it like that, because the Sanskrit word, and it is a Sanskrit word, doesn't refer to it in that way at all. And perhaps later on, I'll be able to explain, if the chance comes up, what the Akasha actually is, and I'll try to find analogies to make it accessible. But I found out how to do this, and I did, through a lot of hard work, and I found out a process whereby I could download the information that really makes up someone's soul blueprint, who they really are at the level of the soul. Why is it important to do that? Well, it's quite simple. Through the choices that we make, we quite often step away from our soul blueprint. Mm-hmm. And when we do, when we step away from that divine blueprint of what we really are, life becomes more difficult in certain areas. I mean, I'm not going to say that, your entire life becomes a catastrophe, but certain things that you find that you would like to do, some things that are coming straight from your heart that you like to do, you find difficult. You find that you're always making reasons why you shouldn't do it and things like this. And it's because we've stepped away. Yeah. Why do we step away? Why do we make incongruent choices? The answer to that's quite simple too. Because from birth, and probably I'm going to say from pre-birth, we're conditioned with beliefs. And those beliefs don't always run congruent with who we are at the soul level. They're not always true beliefs. In fact, many of them are not. We don't need to go into where conditioning comes from, that kind of conditioning. If you go through, a really clear example is the education system. What does the education system teach you or your children? It teaches you how to sit still, how to look at an authority figure, and how to do as you're told. Yes, and very few kids come out of school pushing back at that. Most people do learn it. And even people who think they're rebels, they go out and get a 9-to-5 job, don't they? They think that that's the only way they've got to be. Some people think they're failures because they didn't work hard at school and they didn't go to university and all this. We have a system that instills beliefs in us that are not necessarily true.
Totally
And
agree.
I only use that as an example.
No,
I mean, we don't want to debate on what the education system is or anything like that, but it's just a good
I actually
example.
think, Peter, that that's a really good description, because there's a lot of my followers that reach out to me. Excuse me, bit of a croak after being at Glastonbury yesterday. With all the smoke and the drumming and everything, and all the anyway, I digress. And it's very, very important that we recognize this, and as you say, not to put a downer on the educational system, but to just bring up into our consciousness that we are all mind controlled. We are all mind controlled from birth.
We
and
are.
it's and it's very important that we just recognize this. It's not something to be embarrassed about. It's not something to be annoyed with yourself about. It's something that we need to bring up into our consciousness so that we can actually say, right now, we need to do something about it.
That's all it is. And when we bring things into consciousness, they stop having an effect. Now, I don't watch much television. I do watch some. And by the way, I'd recommend everybody watches a 3-part documentary series that you get unbelievably on the BBC iPlayer. It's called The Trap by Adam Curtis. It will tell you exactly what's happened to have us as human beings in the situation where control systems are now managing us.
Wow.
And the fact that they're beyond the consciousness of the humans that are applying them to us. It's just amazing, and
It fascinates me that they are literally putting it in our face right at this now moment, aren't they? Here, look what we do to you. Here, look what we do to you.
And Adam Curtis, he makes these like way out there documentaries that explain the truth. And I guess many people won't have even heard of him, but I recommend The Trap. 3 parts. You get it on BBC iPlayer. It starts off early part of the 20th century, but the guys that brought it out in the 1950s and created these systems basically to manage the Cold War. But then they found that it actually they what they consider to be human truths to work it, and then we end up with what we call freedom, but it's a very, very constricted freedom. And it's until it isn't freedom at all. Now it's out of the hands of the politicians. They are just applying things that they think they're doing things that they want to do, but they're not doing what they want to do. This is coming from somewhere else. So, anyway, enough of that. Back to Soul Path. So yeah, I found this way of dealing with it. So that not only did I find what the human soul is at the divine level, and it is a process. The soul has a journey before we become these incredibly creative and powerful 5th dimensional beings. Nothing is more disempowered that doesn't understand what it is at the soul level. There's nothing more disempowering than not knowing that. But we are very powerful. And there is a journey that we take from creation, and we go through stages until we become... Do I dare call it the finished article? Because I still think there's processes that go on and on and on, and time doesn't exist here. But so but we do end up at this point where we can choose to have whatever experiences we want, and what we've tended to do, and you wouldn't be here if you hadn't done this yourself, is we look at the earth and we go, whoa, that looks like a great theme park. I want to go down there. We're not sent there necessarily. In fact, I would suggest that we're not. I think we all have free choice, and we choose to go down there, and we choose things that we're great at, to have experiences at, and also to bring those gifts to the world.
Yeah, I agree.
We do. And we really, really do. And so I find these out. I find these things out. It's not like saying, this is your life purpose, but I give you all the information that you would ever need for you to discover your life purpose, and I try to stimulate that within you. I ought to mention too that I am a hypnotist,
yes,
and a hypnotherapist, and I separate the two because a lot of people who are hypnotherapists, and they do what I call relaxotherapy, where half an hour of a session with them is like, your scalp is getting sleepy, the little muscles around your eyes are relaxed, and they go all the way through. And half an hour later, well, what you'll tend to do at the unconscious level is resist that. So I do quick inductions, and then we do the work with the unconscious mind, and that's the theory. But I call myself a hypnotist differently because, sure, I'll go out on the streets and do street hypnosis for fun. We have a laugh with people. often this is my office, and often if people are up for it, I'll have them stuck to the wall here, while I make a cup of tea. But
So glad I don't live anywhere near you.
well, only if people want to do it. I mean, a lot of people come in here and they're quite nervous because they feel they've never been hypnotized before. Of course they have, but they think they haven't and they're worried about it. And I have to say to them, as a hypnotherapist, what benefit would I get from doing something nasty to you, something that would embarrass you or humiliate you? How does that make my practice work? So I don't, but some people are really up for it. What's it like? I'm dying to do this, and so we'll do things. I'll have their hands stuck to their head, and then eventually I'll end up with them. If they are susceptible enough to it, and then I'll have them stuck to the wall while I make us a cup of tea, and then I'll let them go.
Brilliant.
The fact of it is, they could step away from the wall any time they like. It's all suggestion, which again comes back to what they're doing on a macro scale to humanity at the moment.
Of course. And Peter, just as an FYI, because you do in-person sessions, don't you? Is it Staffordshire that you're in?
North Staffordshire, yeah. Newcastle under Lyme. It's between junction 15 and 16 of the M6.
Okay, cool.
If anybody wants to come, fly over.
Yeah, well, what I'll do is I'll pop all of your details in, but I just so people can get an idea of where you are. You're in North Staffordshire in the UK. Perfect.
Yeah, I've lived all over the world though. I still have a New Zealand passport too, because I was born here. I keep coming back here. There's something in the land here that draws me back.
Peter, it is very magical. There's something we need to be working on right now. That's what this is about.
That's right, yeah. And so, I do keep coming back here, but I've lived in California. I've lived in New Zealand, like I said, spent lots of time in Australia as well. Beautiful. Europe is my backyard, and I keep coming back right here. Yeah. So, yeah, I do a lot of work over Zoom. I do a lot of work in person. It doesn't matter. If you're close enough and you want to come in person, yeah, great. That's fantastic. I enjoy it. But Zoom works really well for me as well. Because it gives me a reach. It gives me a reach now that I never had before. Yeah. Which is worldwide. It's global.
Absolutely. And just so that you guys know, I did mine over Zoom with Peter. And I know some of my followers who will be like, oh my God, Peter's amazing when they watch this video. For everybody else, they've done it over Zoom as well. And they've been in different countries. So just, don't limit yourself by this, because your brain will be working. Your brain will be kicking in. Well, you can't do that. Here's all the limitations associated. Okay, so Peter, what I would really like to know, and I'm sure everybody else would really like to know, so it's great, you basically go into the Akasha, you can download the information from that record, from those records, for you to be able to decipher. And I'm going to be honest, ladies and gents, with mine, he was freaking spot on, and he didn't know me from Adam at that point. Obviously, we've spoken a bit since then, but at that point, he didn't know me from Adam. So once you've got, in fact, let's talk about the process that you do that, because what I remember, Peter, is obviously we spoke on the phone, and then you said to me, right, I'm going to be doing this over these days. So, you might feel something because, you're sensitive, maybe you won't, like whatever, just go with it. So explain that process to me, Peter, because it's not just you book a session and then that's it, it's done, is it? No. You book a session. There's information you need to send. And what is that information again?
Yeah, it's quite simple. I need your full name at birth, the name that your parents gave you, the full name. If you've got middle names, I need all of that. I need your full name now. Now, for guys, that's usually the same. For women, they might have a married name. We won't go into all of this stuff about how you shouldn't take the name of your husband or any of that. Most women do. Most. Yeah. And so it's the name that you are known by in the world now. The reason that those two names are great for me is because they're isolated, because I need the place that you were born and the date of birth. Yeah. When I say the place, the nearest town will do. The reason for that is because the likelihood of there being two Lucy Davises born on the same day in the same place who've got the same name now is very unlikely. If I struggle, and if it's not happened often, it's only happened in fact once in all the time I've been doing this, which by the way is maybe 20 years now. That's only happened the once, and I just go and find something else that will actually distinguish a person from another person with the same details. It's
Yeah.
really going to be rare that happens.
Well,
So I need that information.
yeah, and it's really interesting that you say that, because I've always known that my name is very common. Lucy Davis, common as muck, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, the 2nd of February, everybody seems to be born on the 2nd of February, but it's that combination of things, isn't it? And it's very unlikely.
Right.
So, you know,
It really is
again,
unlikely.
people's brains will be thinking, yeah, but my name's like, Claire Smith or something like that, like another Lucy Davis kind of
Have we frozen?
Oh, have we?
I didn't know.
Yeah, no, we're good.
I thought you had for a second, but anyway, it doesn't matter because this is technology and this is what happens sometimes, is it not?
Exactly. So yeah, so any limitations that there is about not being able to access your records, honestly guys, as long as you give your permission to Peter to do it, he can do it. So you've got the information, the bare bones information, date of birth, name, place of birth, and time of birth, if I remember correctly.
I didn't need the time of birth.
All right.
That's something I would ask for if there really was a confusion.
Cool. And then
I don't have my time of birth, by the way, because they didn't.
Not a lot of people do. My mum just tells me all the blooming time what time I was born, because I think she found it inconvenient. It was so early in the morning.
Well, I don't have a mum, you see, like that. Because my natural mother, my birth mother, don't know.
Yeah, of course. And okay, so that removes some limitations as well there, because I know some of my dear followers, some of my people that have been through my programs have been adopted and stuff, so they might have that limitation as well. So it's really good that you've mitigated that.
No, don't need that. It's not like an astrological chart, which, by the way, I do believe in, because where planets and stars are in conjunction with each other at any one time, it does affect the energy of everything the whole universe. The whole universe is constantly changing, and waves of things that are happening and changing all the time like that.
It's interesting you say that, Peter, because literally this morning at 1:45, I hasten to add, I got this mad download about Venus.
Really?
About the things that are coming, shifting in. And I loved astrology as a child, but I don't know anything about it, Peter. I'll be honest. I'm passionate about it. I like it, but I don't know enough about it to know what all the different.
It's really technical, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's it would take a long time.
Yeah.
To be a great practitioner at that, to be able to draw a chart for somebody and interpret that chart. Absolutely. I don't think it's something that can be taken lightly.
No. And very powerful stuff. Very powerful.
Really
So I love the fact that you touched on that. Okay, so you've got the bare bones information. What happens next, Peter? How do you download the information from?
I literally, because what I've done is I've done a shamanic journey. I should say shamanistic, but it is a shamanic journey. I go to the lower world. I have guides there. I have guides that will take me to other guides that will take me through the worlds to the upper world, and then I'm in a place of beyond. Because obviously I'm traveling shamanic, I'm seeing this and I'm communicating, but there comes a point as I'm rising where I lose all vision. I know that I meet guides at some point in a place of incredible light. The information I don't transmit orally. They just have the information of the person that I'm looking for the records for. The next thing I know is I'm coming out of the journey, and I have a book in front of me with writing. So it's automatic writing, and that's how the download happens. But there's more than just the blueprint of the person, because for this to have a therapeutic value, and I do see it as a therapeutic, I need the blocks and restrictions that are keeping them from stepping back into their true divinity 100%, and to actually remove and release those blocks and restrictions. I need to know which choices they've made that have actually taken them a step away. So I end up with these soul stories. I call them soul stories, or karmic patterns. To keep it technical, I might call them karmic patterns, but they're soul stories. I mean, that's how I really started looking at it. Sometimes there are choices that we made in past lives. Usually, there are not many usually, but 2, maybe 3. There are choices that we made there that went unresolved. The karma was not resolved in that lifetime. It's come through another lifetime, however many, to come to us, and it still affects us now in this lifetime. So we have to actually, and I have stories, I mean, little stories, and you know, Lucy, I read them out, and it's a bit like a bedtime story or a fairy story.
And they're bloody accurate.
But yeah, well, they certainly can be very, very accurate, and people often recognise
Well, I
patterns in their
knew
current life.
one of them, as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, well, I know exactly what that is.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was very, very interesting. And okay, you know, a lot of people will be like, yeah, but we don't see things like you see things, or we can't tap into things like you tap into things. That's why Peter's a gift.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
that's
I
why
do it for you.
yeah,
And by the
exactly.
way, I mean, I mean, we do all have gifts, but we do all have limitless abilities to tap into all of creation, everything. Now, if we learn that, then we can all do everything.
Exactly.
But at the moment, I can do this, and for people that want a shortcut, you come to me.
Exactly. And
Uh,
I think it's a really beautiful way that you've just explained that, because right now I have got so many of my followers, particularly on Instagram, tell me how to do it. I want to be able to do it. Let me know how I can do it. And I'm like, it's coming, but with that want, you're actually pushing it away.
Pushing it away.
You
That's
know,
true.
whereas you've absolutely nailed it. And it's something that I always say to people, we've all got it in us. It's just about time,
Mm.
about surrender, and about allowing the flow to come through. I'm sure you didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I'm just going to allow this information to just flow through me, and it just showed up and it arrived.
No, it was a process,
Exactly.
and I wasn't even sure how that process would end, or I mean, it never ends, does it? But I wasn't sure where it was going to take me and what I would end up with it. I knew what I would like, but how that was going to happen, I didn't know, because there was no training, and it would be very, very easy to say, this is so hard. I wish somebody could show me, and then I would never get it.
Yeah. And
And in the
actually,
end, I just moved. But I do journeying anyway for therapeutic reasons. I mean, it's a psychedelic experience without drugs, which is what I love. I mean,
I love it too.
I use these all the time. Well, these are ones that I use when people come here. And I mean, I just did a Christmas drumming and storytelling session last Thursday night, because obviously I've got a tree here. We have all the lights down and candles going, and we do drumming. And I drum people into certain places. Like, I mean, we started off and we drummed people into a very, very archetypal pine forest, European, North American pine forest, snow everywhere.
Beautiful.
Maybe you'll see a wolf. I never tell people what they're going to experience, but people get it. But it put them in the mood for Christmas. I will say that I was also diffusing some doTERRA essential oils, which are very, very pure. So like Siberian fir and Douglas fir, to get the atmosphere of this room very Christmassy.
Nice.
And so I did. But this is how I journey. I mean, I journey with sound. Now, yes, you can drum yourself into anything, but I don't. I've recorded lots of drum patterns and I play them. In most shamanic cultures, the shaman will sit quietly or lie or whatever, and everybody else will do the work, the drumming, the dancing, the chanting. And you imagine somebody like Crazy Horse, late part of the 19th century, would be alone in the teepee. There would be fire, there would be smoke, the smoke of spirit. Around there, everybody is dancing around the fire and doing those chants that you hear on like old Western movies, but and then they're doing that. There will be lots of drumming, and all of that takes Crazy Horse into another realm of consciousness. And this is what I do, so this is how I get to do the journeying that takes me to the Akasha, which
That's actually how I felt yesterday. It was very interesting because I was at Glastonbury, and I had been asked to anchor in some energies there at a particular time, and it wasn't really a convenient time, Peter, I'll be honest with you. Never is it? So I was there, and what was so beautiful is I was sat in a place where I was isolated, like doing my thing, and then all of a sudden I got told, you've got to go to a certain area. And as I moved there, the drumming was just so powerful, and there was a fire literally right next to me, and that's obviously when the vessel just opened up and all of the information and codes and everything started flying through. But I love what you've just shared. It literally took me straight back there. These drumming sessions and these, just allowing the flow through a process like that can really get you connected to something very, very special. You know,
Absolutely.
you don't need to use the plant medicines. Some people do, and no judgment. If you guys want to do that,
I've got zero judgment. I mean, if you want to use LSD, I've used it, but here's my problem with that is that you're in zero control of that.
Mm.
You know, the experience you have will be the experience you have, and you can do nothing about it. Now, if you're having an ab reaction, if you're having a very negative experience, you're stuck with it. With LSD, you're stuck with it for about 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours.
Yeah.
With plant medicine, mushrooms, and so on, several hours, perhaps not as long, depending on how much of this you've had. But what you can't do is come out of it. With a session like this, when you're using drums and you're using sound, you're using smoke and incense and stuff, if the fire alarm goes off, you'll just get up out of the chair and go home, won't you? You know, it's as simple as that. You can, and that's how it should be. That's like a hypnotic trance as well, because the crossover between this kind of altered state of consciousness and hypnosis, well, it isn't even a crossover. They are exactly the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're open to downloads.
Yeah.
Which is why in hypnosis, the download you get is the suggestions given to you by the hypnotherapist. It's the same thing. You know, it literally is the same thing. You're putting your consciousness in a place where it will be able to accept the information that you need to be taking in. For you, it was channeling downloads, but you know, for a therapy client, it's like, how do I stop biting my nails, or whatever it is that they've come for. Absolutely. But it's stuff like that. But we're going to the same place.
Yeah.
You're just downloading things from dimensions way and beyond. Whereas as a hypnotherapist, I'm giving them from this dimension, but the person in the chair, I keep pointing to the chair, I've got a therapy chair. The person in the chair.
It's my chair.
No, it is. I'm not going to turn the camera around and show. But the one you can see over there, that's the one I'm in. The clients is in one right opposite. But so they are just getting it downloaded from me, and it's it's knowing how to phrase and word those suggestions and how to work them. And I mean, I don't plan things, and there are no set techniques. Just really, as there are no set techniques for Soul Path, because when I'm there, then I'm lost.
Yeah.
I do not have conscious awareness of what is happening as I'm being given these downloads, and I'm writing freehand.
And you know you're writing, Peter, or you literally just scribe?
I just don't know. I have no idea. I mean, I the only way I know I'm writing is when I come out of it.
Yeah.
It takes. I've got to tell you, it takes a couple of hours or more, usually about 3 hours.
Yeah.
To do this journeying and downloading, and I come out, and then I've got to actually type it up because it's indecipherable. It's scrawl. It really is scrawl. I'm not the worst writer in the world. I mean, usually I can read pretty well. Most people could read my writing, but this is pretty scribbly.
Yeah.
So I type it up so that when I do the presentation, I've got it. And also, I would have, I give you the notes that I have. So, I send a PDF to people when they've had this. And also, I always record those sessions. So you get a link to the audio recording, and you can just download that. And I do recommend that people play it back if they've got questions. And anybody can get after the session. People can and sometimes people do. They'll get in touch and they'll say, "What did this mean? What did that mean?"
Yeah, well, you hear different things the second time round. You definitely do, because you're so engrossed in certain bits of information, and that's the way that the human brain is designed, isn't it?
It is.
You pick up on the bits that are maybe, attacking your current situation, but then you miss the bits that are underlying. So I've listened to mine back, and I thought it was extremely powerful. And I've read the notes a number of times, as you guys know, because I did a video on it. But it's a big process, Peter, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not small.
And it can be very freeing for people. I know for myself personally, even though I knew that there was an attachment in one of my past lives, I really did have it in my consciousness, because as soon as you told me, I was like, right, that's that. But it's good to be able to firstly validate it, even though we don't really need the validation. We know what we know. But secondly, also work with somebody to be able to free it.
Which is the final thing. Now, I know that I set things in place so that all of the things that have been unresolved. It's just unresolved karma. That's all it is. And the things that are unresolved, I set them in place so that you can release them. And then I'll go through a process with you at the end of the presentation, where if you're choosing to release them, everybody has done so far. Of all the people that I've ever done this with, nobody's ever said, no, I'll keep those blocks and
Yeah,
restrictions.
I'll keep this trauma.
Yeah, I've never had anybody say that. So all I do is I'll take you to a place, another altered state of consciousness, where you can pull a metaphorical lever, and that lever releases it. And I see people have visible shifts at that point.
Yeah. Yeah,
And and then it may take a few days, maybe even a few weeks, for you to work out this new way of living, these new perspectives that you're going to have on the world around you, as all of those changes integrate into your being fully and start working for you and running for you, and you become a different person. It doesn't mean that you'll never make any incongruous choices ever again. We live in a place where we're actually surrounded. No matter how much you try, we're having information flooded at us all the time. A lot of it fake and false information. It's only going to latch onto you for a moment, and if you accept it, it becomes your reality, and then suddenly you find you're making one or two choices again. How often would you need a soul path attunement? I'm not going to say that you ever need to do it twice, because you could end up spending your life obsessing about these things. What we've done is a shortcut. We've just given you a karmic, I don't know, what shall we call it? A spa treatment, a karmic spa treatment for your soul. So it takes you back to a neutral point. Now go and live your life. You've chosen to have a human experience. Have the human experience.
Exactly.
Do the things now that really feel okay to you to do, where all the doubts are not there anymore.
Yeah, and I feel actually what you've just said there, Peter, is very, very important that we just make sure that it's landed with people. We've got to stop searching constantly for this nirvana.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, like if you need some guidance, do something like this. Do, I don't know, tarot or like whatever works for you, whatever you're drawn to. But we don't need to keep chasing it, because the more we chase, the more it runs. The more we surrender, the flow is just going to come through us.
I'll give you a great example of that. And this is why ancient stories and mythology, the things that have been trivialized and dismissed by over the last few centuries, particularly by people for a very good reason from their point of view, but why they were so important. If you imagine like you're in a Celtic roundhouse, long before Celtic Christianity, for example, and somebody comes around in the depth of winter, there's a big fire, the whole community's there, and somebody's going to stand there with a stick. I have one, a storytelling stick, and where I place my fingers just bring memories of stories back. But I'll give you a good example of this. Pwyll and Rhiannon, the story, from the Mabinogi on the Welsh mythology. So Pwyll was the Prince of Dyfed. He knew about this mound. Think of Glastonbury Tor, it's very like that. And it's like this mound. And if you were to sit on it and spend a night on it, you would either receive an incredible gift or a dolorous blow. And he is brave and he says, I'm going to do this. Well, that in itself is a story. Take the risk. There's where the courage is. Your treasure lies in that dark cave that you daren't enter. But he did it. And I'll cut this short. It's a nice story. But what he did see was somebody on a white horse, dressed in a white gown, a woman, just walking by the horses, just walking and walking. And he sent one of his retinue out to catch it and ask who she was. And this guy is running at full pelt. The horse is still walking, but he could never catch it. It looked as though it should have been easy to catch. And that's exactly what you've just said. When we chase after something like that, it just goes further and further, gently, further and further away. So, chasing after some things that you feel are going to be important to you, why start asking yourself questions. Find a quiet spot. Why is this important to me? It's a really good question. And then sit quietly and just see what comes up.
And I feel that it's really important, actually, just because I just feel like this needs to be spoken. Think about it. Everybody go to that one person that they really, really fancied, they really wanted a relationship with, and you chased them and you chased them and they shunned you and they shunned you. And then one day you're like, thank God. God,
That does happen to all of us. Surely that's happened to
exactly.
everybody.
And it's so true, Peter.
Mm.
We need to just recognize in our mind that we are creating our own destiny constantly. So when we are desperate, we increase desperation. When we are suffering, we increase more suffering. And very recently, I'd actually like your perspective on this, Peter. I've been speaking about grief. You know, a lot of people are losing people in their life and people are grieving, and they say to me, but, you know, Lucy, I need to grieve this person. And I totally agree. You've got to have a period of mourning. You've got to have a period of grief. However, if you are going to live in that grief for the rest of your life, it's actually a very, very low level of consciousness, a very low level, like fear level kind of consciousness. But people say to me, but how am I supposed to carry on? And my version is, well, how are you not supposed to carry on? That person is now going to guide you. That person is relying on you to release them so they can go and do their thing in the other dimensions. And if you hold on to that cord, you're essentially stopping them as well as stopping yourself.
So you've got an energetic being now that's been released from the... Oh, the recording.
You just froze for a moment, so I thought I'd pause.
No.
You were like, you now got an energetic being, and then you went quiet. So I was like, I'm just going to pause it so that we don't lose it.
Well, we have... isn't it funny? Is there somebody that doesn't want us to do this? Anyway.
I would suggest so. Most of my videos do, Peter, so don't be offended.
Right. Well, anyway, I'm not going to worry about it because we're stronger than that.
Exactly.
And well, I'm just saying, like, you know, what you've got at that point then, and this sometimes comes out in a soul path attunement, is you've got a soul that's trying to go back to where it needs to go to take the next step of its journey, wherever that may be. Usually we're going to go back to where we came from, the fifth dimension, and take stock and then say, what do I do now? Bit like the end scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey. And we won't go there, but where the embryo is just looking down on the earth. And in the book, he was master of the world and he didn't know what to do, but he would think of something.
Of course.
And it's we have that experience. Well, I just had shivers now. We have that experience, and what we're doing is we're holding on sometimes to a soul, especially if we've got an energetic reason to do so. Maybe we've had an unconscious contract with a person, not necessarily a soulmate one. It could be anything. It could have been a contract of protection, or things like this. And if we are still holding on to that side of that, it could be an attaching. I'm using, but to make it an analogy, we're using that as an attaching mechanism for that person's soul. Now that soul can't go and do anything else, and the only way it can sustain itself as an energetic being is to take sustenance, shall we call it, energy from you.
Yeah, exactly.
And that then does have an effect on your life here.
Yes.
And it's a negative effect. Yeah. Grief is, again, you know, why do we grieve the way that we grieve? A lot of it is to do with the program we've got around grief.
Yeah.
And how you see other people do it, and how we see it in the movies and all of this, and we think we've got to be like that. Yeah. Would it really matter if you dressed in flower power clothes from the 1960s and threw flowers everywhere to celebrate the passing of somebody you love? No, but we tend to wear black, don't we? Mm. And if you go to a funeral, then everybody expects you to do that. They expect you not to laugh and tell jokes and kind of stuff like this. So all of the other things and the beliefs that we have around grief are what hold us back too. Yeah. I mean, it is very, very difficult. I do understand that. And you must mourn. You must reflect on the time you had with that person. I would suggest, though, that as soon as you can, you make that reflection not about what you feel you've lost, but about what you experienced with that person and the joy. Now, I know that this sounds like really trite and cliched to say that, but it is of you then continuing with your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds heartless, doesn't it? It does sound heartless.
It can do,
if you look at the programs, like you said, from the movies and things like that. But actually, the reality is we will see them again. We will feel them again. We will vibrate with them again. It just
Absolutely.
won't be in the form that you remember, but you won't be in the form you remember at that
Remember
point
either,
anyway, so
no.
don't worry about it. And we're just constantly worried about things. We're constantly in this moment of lack. Well, if they're not in my life anymore, then there's going to be a gaping hole. But how about we look at that and say, now look what I can bring in. It's quite interesting, Peter, because over the last few years, I've lost, was it this year? This year, I lost my uncle in April.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And it was down to this. He had brain tumours, but it was actually this that finally killed him, and that's okay. He certainly gave some amazing information, and we've connected since then.
Wonderful.
And what was very interesting is my family didn't want me to go to the funeral because I wouldn't wear a mask. Now, everybody said to me, but surely you're annoyed, surely you're pissed off. And I was like, why would I be? I know I'm going to communicate with him again. I know that I'm going to see him again. He knows I loved him. I know he loved me. And I know the fear in the people that don't want me to go because they're embarrassed of me standing there in my truth. And I get that. So I don't and people were like, but surely. And I'm like, there's nothing to be upset about, from my perspective. And me and my uncle were very, very, very close. Very, very close. But, I just did all the energetic work from here, made sure that his soul was released properly and, said goodbye to him, asked for a sign. I got a massive angel in the sky, and this is the bit that people forget.
That's absolutely beautiful. And that's exactly how it ought to be. And again, the cliche is you should celebrate the life of the person that's gone. Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you first met that person, or when you first were aware of them in your life, whether it's an uncle, even a mother, father, whatever, you changed because of your experience with them.
Exactly.
And now that they've gone, they've prepared you for what you can now bring into your life.
Exactly.
And I think the focus ought to be celebrate them by finding what it is that you want to bring into your life. The soul food that's going to really bring you into a new state of being. And you should thank them for being part of the preparation for you to now take another step to somewhere else. And then you never forget them. Why would you want to forget them? Nobody's going to suggest that you do. But isn't there something morbid about the I think Queen Victoria is probably the best example. Husband Albert dies, wears black for the next 60 years. Great. Well, what a fantastic life that is, isn't it? I mean, not that I'm a fan of the royal family for 1,000,001 reasons, but
we won't go there.
I look at that as an example, and I'm thinking, do you know something? Because in those days, people did love royalty. Oh God, the Queen and this.
But this is how the indoctrination started.
And that I was just going to say, and didn't that tell an entire nation, if not an entire world, how you're supposed to behave when somebody close dies?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Wouldn't you rather do something that's certainly something that was pre-Christian, but that's certainly carried on until the medieval years, where we celebrate passings? A Viking funeral, what could be better? I mean, I know they didn't actually bury people like that, but it was a great scene in the movie from the 1960s. And the dead leader is on the longboat, and they put it out, and they're shooting fire arrows into it, and it burns, and the whole thing. And what a celebration! What a way to go! Why do we now just have to close ourselves up?
Yeah.
Rather than open ourselves out.
Realistically, the only thing that is certain in any of our lives at the moment, the way that we live as human beings, I do actually feel that we are eternal. However, in this human experience right now, we get to a certain age and we pass, but it could happen at any point during our life, bearing in mind our soul contract. So if the one thing we're certain of is the one thing that we fear the most, that means you spend your whole life in fear.
There are lots of cultures that never were afraid of it, were they? And they live incredible lives. I mean, go to First Nation people in Australia.
Yeah.
such as there are any left. But you can find there's a great anthropological book called Voices from the First Day.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to have a lovely blueprint of different ways of living, even here, even in like the Western world, even in the techno world that we live in, read that, because the forward to every chapter, this anthropologist, it's incredibly spiritual, and it blows away loads and loads of entrenched beliefs that keep us locked as slaves to what's going on, even though we're aware, we know that there is something strange in the world, and we something that we have to be aware of. There are things that are keeping us locked, and this keeps us unlocked. Let me give you just one example. Sleep. The idea that you've got to sleep 8 hours. You read any medical document now, any of the science documents, they'll tell you that's what you got to do. Except when you go to absolute sleep researchers, people that do nothing else, they'll say, well, yeah, you do need certain hours of sleep in every day, but it doesn't have to be at night, and it doesn't all have, you'll be doing the work that you need to do in 2-hour, 3-hour chunks. Sleep when you feel like you
I'm
need
a
to
big fan of nanny naps.
Me too. Me too. I mean, I will have a nap this
At the
afternoon.
moment, I'm like, I just need to upgrade a little bit,
Yeah, and you do all that replenishment. You third to fourth dimension transitioning, where thoughts and dreams reside in the fourth dimension. So you need to, your unconscious mind, your soul needs to actually take stock of everything that you've done in the previous day, and then put it in your long-term memory so that that can be projected back to the Akasha. Why do we have an Akasha? I said I'd mention it. Do I have time? I'll just a quick.
Got a couple of minutes.
Yeah, well, the Akasha then, where your everybody's records reside. So if you imagine the great creator, I'm going to call it God because we've only got 2 minutes and it's one syllable. So God is constantly creating. The best explanation I ever heard was God is a permanent exhalation of breath, where the breath is creation. Not for nothing does the first book of the Bible talk about creation in terms of, and the breath moved on the face of the water. Water is the divine feminine, the all potential, the electric, the fire aspect of creation is the thing that sets it all in motion. So the masculine and feminine come together. If you look at the Kabbalah, then you're going to see Kether being the source at the top. Boom, the masculine lightning flame comes down, it hits the Sephiroth Chokmah. Boom, the next stage is Binah. Binah is the great crucible, the grail, the eternal womb, and it's the spark that fires all of the potential into creating something until you get down to the bottom, which is Malkuth, which is the third dimensional physical being. So that was just a quick one. But why does the creator do this? Why doesn't it just sit there doing nothing perfectly? It knows, it is aware of itself, it is self-aware. I'm going to say it because I don't want to get into this gender stuff. Oh, God's a woman, God's a man. So it is aware of its own potential, and its potential is limitless. It is impossible to gauge. So it's creating everything, and it's constantly creating. In that process, it creates us. But it needs to know, it needs to have the experience of what it's created. So our experience needs to be projected back onto this. In Sanskrit, the word Akasha is called, it's a Sanskrit word. And it's like, think of it as like a membrane, a screen that is infinitesimally thin. In other words, so thin that it doesn't exist, but it does exist. And it'll kill you. But it's like a screen. God's on one side. We cannot have knowledge of God. We cannot have experience of that without actually becoming God, going back to the creator. Possible. But you won't know anybody that's done it because they can't come back here. So what we've got is that membrane through which creation happens. The experiences we have, think of it as like a big projection screen. We have our experiences and then we project them back onto the screen so that the creator can be watching it. Now, that's made it sound like it's small scale. think of everything that's ever happened. And what goes to the Akasha is not just what I take down about you. Every single breath you've ever taken, the pressure of the breath going in, the pressure of the breath coming out, every thought you've ever had, every dream you've ever had, everything, every experience. I'm just going to touch my desk now. You can't see me do it. The feeling of me touching that desk, bang, to the Akasha.
Yeah.
Everything that's ever happened. The shirt cuff just moved against my skin. I felt it. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's every experience is back there.
And it's stored. Everything.
Yeah.
That's the key bit here. Like the way that I see it is very interesting, because I was explained to it being a library before, but the way I see it is almost like sticky notes everywhere. I'm quite visionary, you know. So
what works for you?
It's literally everything that you do, every emotion that you have, every experience that you have, because the reason you're experiencing it is because the creator needs to experience it, and he's chosen you to experience it through.
Yeah. And, you know, he's created you to have the experience. So the interesting thing for me is that looking at it as a screen, the way that it was described in the ancient Sanskrit texts, where the word first originates, is wonderful, because if you think of it, of every single living thing, everything, because everything is living, by the way, you know, and everything has consciousness at certain levels, but everything is feeding back onto this screen. What would that screen look like to a human if we could see it? Probably a very abstract painting. It would be something like a Jackson Pollock's, you know, splatter painting or something like that. It would look so confusing. But what it does do, when we use that as the analogy, is subconsciously, or unconsciously, as I prefer to say, we see that we're all one.
Yeah.
Our record isn't in a box separate from everybody else's record. Our stuff is meshed in there with everybody else's.
Together. Yeah, absolutely.
And so to me, that's a very beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I stepped away from talking about the Akashic record as being like a giant library. I loved it when that came to me, and I thought, yeah, I like that. I'm going to use the screen as my analogy now. But you know, whatever works for you, whatever way you want to visualize it, understand. And I'm sure that everybody that's, you know, watching this and everybody that's known you will understand that we are all one.
Yeah.
We're actually not separated. This is the illusion that allows us to have a human experience. But it can also make the human experience a really difficult, hard, dense experience to have.
Yeah, because people are choosing, especially at the moment, people are choosing to live in certain vibrations. They're like, come on, you can do it. And they're like, not moving.
No, not me.
Like,
not
come
me.
on, you
not.
can do it.
I'm
no, I'm being stubborn. Oh, fuck, you're holding us back.
I know. Well, don't, you know, and we have to. We will come out of that. I mean, and I have every faith that even the people now that are sitting in, and they're actually choosing to close themselves into this really difficult way of living, and they're living in great fear. I have great faith that the time will come, even though time's an illusion, where they will escape from the bondage that they find themselves in. We, at this level, can't force them to change that. You can put as much information in front of people that don't want to see it as you like, and they still won't see it.
Yeah.
So and the more you, and you know what you said earlier on, and the more you push, the further away they go.
And this is actually what I've been doing a lot of in probably since about March of this year, is we just need to allow people to just be and make their own decisions. Even if it's not the decision that you personally would make, we've got to allow people to be now. We've really got to give them the space to be the person that they choose to be, because it's all part of our experience that we're going through.
I mean, will things change? I mean, even if you look back at mainstream history, every time there's been an empire, it's failed. Things will change.
Has to.
They do.
It has to change.
We don't live in a static universe. I mean, the creation is there. It's to change. God doesn't want to just create us all and say, oh, thanks for having that experience, and what do I do now? It wants that change to happen. I mean, we're created to be creators. We are great creators, and change will happen. I'd love to think that in my current human experience, I'll see this mass of change of people just going, wow, I didn't realize we were this. This is fantastic. And I'm on to it because I'm following you. You
Like,
told me
like
something
what
the
I
other
said to
day,
you
and
the other
yeah,
day.
you
Like
did,
what
and
I said to you the other
I
day.
haven't forgotten a word of that, and I'm onto that. I'm
Good.
up for that.
Good. I'm
Brilliant.
pleased
Bring it
about
on.
that. Right, ladies and gents, we have
Yeah.
to end it. I'm sorry, there's probably a lot more we could speak about, but I've got to
Bless
go
you
to
all
another
for
meeting.
watching.
So,
Yeah. And
Peter, thank you so much for joining us.
it was my
Ladies and
delight.
gents, all of the details will be in the description. I think it's below on YouTube, not above, so below.
It's usually above on YouTube, below on YouTube, isn't it? Yeah.
And yeah, so all of the details will be there. Feel free to reach out to Peter. You do not need to come to me to go to him.
No.
Do leave us a comment. Do remember to like this video if it resonates with you and share it with people that you may feel will benefit from this. Peter, once again, thank you so much,
Well,
my friend.
bless you so much for asking me to be here. I always love talking with you, and it was just an honor to be on your show. I mean, really, it's amazing. Thank you so much, and everybody out there. God bless you all for listening.
Yeah, and
Honestly.
happy Christmas, everybody.
Hey,
Happy
yeah.
Christmas.
Christmas. There's my tree, and enjoy it, and enjoy the new year as well.
Of course.
Enjoy it because change constantly rolling around like a wheel. Enjoy it.
We will get Peter back soon, ladies and gents. Lots of love. I'll catch you in
And
the
lots of
next
love to
video.
you, Lucy, and everybody out there. Take care now. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye for now.